So we're going to make the bucket list with core data. And we're just going to build everything from scratch. If you guys have any questions, and I'm going to go as quickly as I can, because a lot of this stuff will be review for you guys. But if there are parts where you're unclear, or when you were doing it, you kind of weren't exactly sure what happened, feel free to stop me, and I'll explain that to you guys in more detail, right? So let's get it started. So we're going to create a new Xcode project, single view application, project name, bucket list core data demo. Now this time I'm checking this use core data. And this guy will generate a bunch of code for me as soon as I create the project. Okay. I'm going to save it on my desktop. Now you see that we got, if we look in our app delegate, we see that there's a bunch of this code that was added for us, right? And in the platform, it shows you how to add this code later on manually to an existing project. But basically, it's doing what the computer just did for us when you check the box, okay? So in addition to this change, we also have this guy, the XC data model file that we had before, right? So over here, we're gonna create our entities, right? So for the bucket list assignment, we have an entity called, what is it? Like missions? What is it? Was it called missions, right? Or bucket list? Oh, it was called missions. So we're going to add an entity. Over here, we're going to change the name to mission, right? We're going to add an attribute. We're going to call that the mission description. Has to be lowercase. We're going to make or we'll just call it content. Here we're going to make it a string, okay? And I believe in Swift 3 that's all you need to do, right? So I'm going to go Command B and build this guy. Now over here, first things first, I got my view controller. I'm going to be changing this guy to main view controller, or I should probably name it bucket list. Bucket list view controller. I'm going to copy that over, put it in here as well. I'm going to change this guy on top, and I'm going to change this to a UI table view controller. Okay, save anyways, save that. Now over here, main storyboard, I'm going to get rid of this view controller, and I'm going to put in table view controller. I'm going to make this guy my initial view controller so it loads up, and I'm going to give it that class that we defined, bucket list view controller. There we go. Now, in order to see if our entity was correctly created, we're gonna we're gonna fix these errors first. This guy needs an identifier, so we're gonna say you are my cell. All right, so that's gone. Prototype table cells must have used identifiers. Yeah, so no errors. Cool. So we're going to go back to bucket list view controller, and in order to use core data, we're going to have to import core data. That. Once we import core data, we're going to Command B and build it. Over here on top, I'm going to create a global variable, and let's make sure that we have some clean code here. So global variables, var, this is going to be my mission array. That is going to be an array of missions. See, as I typed MI, this guy came out. That is a very good sign, because now I have this class that I can select, this type, And over here you see the C here, that means it's a class, right? Custom class. So we got our array of missions, we're going to initialize it to make sure it's empty. And there we go. Core data is implemented. Now, in order to be using this UI table view controller, I have to implement those two methods. So it's going to be table view number of rows in section. Number of rows, I'm going to return self.missionArray.count. My other one is going to be self_row at index path. So it is this one, right? And for that, I am going to create, first of all, I'm going to create an outlet. Or not, I don't need to create an outlet. It's a table view controller, right? So I'm going to create a variable called cell equals to table view.dequeue reusable cell with this identifier. The identifier is going to be my cell, like that. And the cell dot text label dot text equal to my self dot missions array of index path dot row, and this is the each of the mission objects. So this is one particular mission object. The mission object contains this property called content that I define in my entity, right? So that is the string that I'm going to set as my cell.textLabel.text, right? So once we do that, we can do the return the cell, and we're good. Command B, there should be no errors. Ah, we gotta unwrap this guy. There we go. Can I use optional chaining on, what is this? There we go, Command B. Right, we just built it, everything looks good. Now these two guys are gonna be, so this one is gonna be UI lifecycle. These two guys are going to be table view methods. Okay, so nice and organized. I don't like having these comments in there if it's not written by myself. So I'm going to delete all that. All right, so cool. So right now, looks pretty clean. Right now the missions array is going to be empty. Now we're going to want to load up all of the things from our core data, right? But before we can do that, we're going to have to initialize the NSManage.object context, right? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to create, in my global variables, I'm going to create constant called context. I'm going to set that equal to this guy, right? And I'm going to have this over here so we can see it. And it's going to be UI application dot shared dot delegate as exclamation point app delegate. We're going to wrap this guy in some parentheses, and we're going to say, what is it? Dot persistent container dot view content dot persistent container dot view content. Everything just auto completed, so I know that it should be working as intended, right? So once we have that, we're going to go down here and we're going to make another category. So we're going to say over here are the core data methods. Okay. So here we're going to have a function called fetch all missions. That is a function. Inside of the function, I'm going to do let user request equals to ns fetch request. That over here, we're looking at this part, right? Has to be exactly the same as that. Little angle brackets, ns fetch request result. There. And then we're going to put in the entity name. And our entity name is mission. Like that. Okay. So once we have that, we're going to do this do catch, do, and then over here it's going to be catch. So do the thing, and then if there's error, we're going to print out the error. Put this string in here is going to be error. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set our self.mission array, which we named mission array, equals to ns, no, we're going to set that equal to try context dot fetch. Inside of here, we've already made this guy, so we're going to replace this with user request. And then we're going to cast the result that we get back as an array of missions. As array missions. That. Okay, so everything looks good. Cool. So now we have the part where, we load up all the missions, and then we can display the missions in the table view. So in order to load this up when the app starts, we can put this in the view did load, this function. So we're going to run self.fetch all missions as soon as the view loads. When it loads up, it's going to run this function, and then we have the data now in this global variable, and the table view will now show the data that we got from core data. All right? So far, so good. The next step is adding stuff to it, right? In order to add stuff to our table, we're going to have to save it in core data, but we're also going to have to use another scene, another view controller to do that, right? So right now, we're kind of just focused on building the bucket list again. So I'm going to show you guys a different method to segue between different scenes, right? So yesterday, you did the drag, the segue from the UI storyboard. Now, before there were those drag and drop features, people did it programmatically. And I kind of like to do it programmatically because I don't have all those lines going around everywhere. That gets confusing sometimes, right? So we're going to make a view controller. We're just going to put it right here. Right? So this is a view controller. I'm going to create command N. We're going to make another Swift file, and we're going to call this the add view controller. Over here, we're going to drag this guy up top. We're going to kind of just copy this stuff that we need. I'm going to put it down here. We're still going to be importing core data. So this guy is called the add view controller, and you are a UI view controller, not a table view controller. Right? So once we have this, we're just going to go ahead and copy the UI lifecycle functions that we have. Put you in here. Also, because we're going to be using core data, we're also going to need the shared context. The context, which I will copy up top right here. We're going to get rid of this guy. It's not going to need that. But we are going to be needing this context. Now, we don't have this function anymore, so we can get rid of that. So this guy looks good. So what we have here are global variables, UI lifecycle. Now we got to go to the main storyboard and connect this guy. So we're this new view controller, we want your class to be add view controller. And also, I'm going to give you a storyboard ID, right? Now, this storyboard ID is how I identify this specific one in the storyboard. Because when we're not using the segues and the lines, we have to figure out a way to identify each scene, right? And just having the class is not enough of a unique identifier because multiple scenes can have the same class, right? But you can only have one unique storyboard ID. So here I'm going to name it add VC. It's short for add view controller, right, with a lowercase. All right, so once I have that storyboard ID, now in my bucket list view controller, I am going to import, embed in navigation controller. So we have this top bar, right? So now this is the bucket list view controller. This guy is the add view controller. Now in here, I'm going to put in a button, a bar button on the top right here, and I'm just going to make it add. Right? So when this guy is clicked, I want to display this guy. Now I'm not going to do that using segues. I'm going to show you guys a different way to do it. So, but first of all, we're going to have to make that action. So over here we have global variables, UI lifecycle. Usually what I like to do is I like to have actions and outlets. So in this case, we don't have any outlets. So we're going to just have the action category there. We're going to open up the assistant editor, go into main storyboard. We click on this button, control, drag it over, handle, add, button, pressed. We're going to make you an action. UI bar button item, connect. All right, so when that guy is tapped, this is where I want to transition to the add VC, right? And the code to do this programmatically is in here, right? So we want to do, the first thing we want to do is we want to dispatch the main queue, right? And we'll get into this part when we talk about the Grand Central dispatch. But what it does is really, it just, sometimes if you don't do it, you'll see that when you click on a button, there's like a slight lag, and then it'll show up. I ran into this problem when I was building the Algo app. So that I added this dispatch async main to force whatever the process is this happens on into the main queue, so it happens quickly. So if you put your stuff within here, if it's not on the main queue already, it'll force it to be in the main queue, which will mean that it happens immediately, right? And we'll get more into this as we when we get to the Grand Central dispatch. But over here, we're going to create a constant. Let VC equals to self.storyboard dot instantiate view controller with identifier. Right, second one. We click on that. The identifier is going to be add VC, the one that I just named, and we're going to instantiate that and cast it as or add view controller, like that. So now this view controller is that specific add view controller that I have. And if I want to give it some delegates or assign some properties, this is the part where I would do it. Right? So instead of using the segue and prepare for segue stuff, where you had to kind of be in the prepare for segue function in order to have access to both, now I can do this literally anywhere in my code and have access to that destination. Right? So over here, right now we're not going to set anything, but here if we're going to set properties of VC, and over here we're going to transition. So over here we're going to, this part is instantiate the view controller, destination view controller. And we're going to set the properties of it, and then we're going to transition to that view controller. And all you got to do is self.present this guy. The view controller we're presenting is VC, animated true, completion nil. Right? That's all we need. So if we command B and build that, we will see that if we run this, go to make this scale 33. All right. So if we run this, hide this. So if there's nothing in our table right now, but if we run it, that took us to the other view controller, right? It's all white, so you don't really see it. Another good thing to do here is to print a message that says, got all the missions from core data. That, right? Just so we can see that it's working. So all right, so we got that working. Now we're going to go over to the add view controller. Over here, we're going to create a button over here, and we're going to call this, we're going to give some constraints. And this button will name, it's too wide. We're going to name this guy cancel. And we're going to create another button, and I'm holding down Alt just to drag this over. We're going to call this guy done or save. Okay. Now we can do this using the navigation thing, but just having the button here is good enough. I'm going to pin that, give that some constraints. All right. So these guys are good. Now all we have to do is create another text field. Put that down here. Give it some basic constraints. That maybe we want these guys to be a little bit further from the top. Say 10, 10. Right? So looking good. So now we have to make these actions and an outlet for this guy. And that's really all we need on this page. Right? So in the add view controller, we're going to open up Assistant Editor. Over here, we're going to have actions, and we're going to put everything over here, right? So we have these two buttons, which are the cancel button. So here it's going to be handle cancel button pressed. UART action, UART button, touch up inside. Here we have the save button. Pressed, action, UART button, connect. Now, last thing, we have this text field. Just going to put it over here, and we're just going to call this input field. And that's just an outlet. All right? Okay, so when we hit the cancel button, we want to dismiss ourselves, right? Now, the assignment told you to make a cancel button delegate. I'm sure you guys knew how to do that, within the first bucket list assignment. So just to save some time, we're just going to dismiss ourselves. So self.dismiss, animated true, completion nil, right? So that will dismiss whatever it is that is self. When we hit the save button, we want to save to core data. We want to save whatever it is that is in this input to core data, right? So now, if we look at let's print it. We're going to print self.inputfield.text. All right, whenever we hit save, we're going to print out whatever's in there. So let's go ahead and run this. Got all the missions from core data. This guy, it's all white, so you can't really see it. I guess we can make this another color, but whatever. Over here, we're gonna, what is all this stuff? core data system container. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't seem like an error, just like a warning. So we're gonna not type anything, we're gonna click save. It's an optional. Inside of the optional, there's a string. Now, if we type something, we see that it's optional, and if we don't type anything at all, it's gonna be an empty string. Yep. So, you know, a good way to kind of tell what kind of data you're going to be saving is you always want to print it out first and see what it actually is before you actually want to commit the save, right? So in this case, I know that this guy's an optional, so I'm going to unwrap that optional first. So if let text equals to this guy, then in here I know that it will no longer be optional, right? It'll be an empty string. The text will be an empty string. So if text is not equal to empty string, then I want to go and save it. Because there's no point in me saving an empty string into core data, because that wouldn't make any sense. So if it's not an empty string, then I want to go ahead and save it to core data, right? So I'm going to comment this, save to core data. Once I do that, I will dismiss myself and refresh, and there's a number of steps I need to do on the bucket list view controller, right? So I need to dismiss myself, and I need to, in the bucket list view controller, I need to, first of all, I need to grab all the data from core data again, and then I need to reload the table view, right? To be able to show that thing that we just added, right? So these two things I do not know how to do within this view controller. Therefore, I need to have a delegate. I need to make a delegate to help me do that. I can dismiss myself though. So, you know, we're just going to follow these steps. It's always good to kind of write down the pseudocode for the stuff that you're going to do, so you have a clear idea of what you're going to need, and you know it's very clear, and you just wrote yourself the comment beforehand, right? So we're going to save to core data. Now, how do we do that? We have on our notes over here, saving to core data. We're going to create a new instance of this entity, and then we're going to save it to core data, right? So we're going to use this guy, put that over here. So what we're going to do is write the code for that. So we're going to create a constant called new mission. We're going to set that equals to an NS entity description. It's going to be dot insert new object for entity name mission into context, right? And we have this variable available to us because we created this global variable up top, right? So we got that. Now we have just made it a brand new instance of this mission object. We need to give it the property that we want to be saved. So new mission dot content. Oops, we forgot one thing. We need to see the reason why when I typed in new mission dot and I didn't see content in here is because we didn't really downcast this as the specific thing we're looking for. So mission, right? So now that we have that, we can do dot, and you see content is the first thing that I see. That's the property that's defined within my model. That is equal to text, right? Which is this guy. So that is all set up. Now we gotta save it, right? So we do this if self dot context dot has changes, we're going to do some stuff. We're going to catch the error. And what we're going to do is try self.context.save. Right, and then we're going to print, if that is successful, we're going to print successfully or successfully saved a new mission to core data. Right? So everything looks good there. We're done with this step. Now, I'm going to want to dismiss myself, which is the same code that we had up here. Then we're going to run this code. And really, we should be running this before we dismiss ourselves. And that should be the last step. Right? So over here, we're going to have to create a custom delegate and a protocol for this. Right? So we're going to go over here, Command N. It's a Swift file. We're going to call this add delegate, capitalized, or add mission delegate. That's a better name. All right, add mission delegate. We're going to create that. Over here, we're going to say protocol. The name of it is going to be add mission delegate. This guy is a class. Your requirements are this function here, which is done adding new mission. And really, it doesn't need to take in anything, because all I need to do is just tell the bucket list view controller that, hey, this done, reload all your data, right? And that's the only thing we need. We're not passing the data back. If we were, we would put it in here as an argument. All right, so we're going to save that. Over here in our add view controller, on the very top in the global variables, we're going to create a variable called lowercase add new or add mission delegate. This is of type capital add mission delegate. That it's an optional, right? So because we have this here, we can now run this method. Right? So grab all data from core data again, reload. That's all going to happen within my delegate, but I need to run that function for my delegate to do it. So here I'm going to say self.addMissionDelegate dot. This is going to be done adding new mission. That is the function I'm going to run. Okay, so all of this will happen within here, but in terms of my add view controller, that's all I need to do. I just need to trigger that to happen. Right? Now, this is all set. In my bucket list view controller, when I'm setting my properties for the view controller, vc.addMissionDelegate equal to self. All right, so I'm making myself that delegate, and I also have to tell myself that I do indeed conform to the addMissionDelegate protocols. Right, so that there's an error there. Once I put this up here, the error was gone, but now there's another error saying that you do not conform to protocols of the addMissionDelegate, and we're going to do that. So down here, at the very bottom, we're going to create another little section here called protocol. Methods. This guy is going to be the done adding mission function, right? So done adding the mission. What do I want to do? I want to fetch all missions, and I want to do table view dot reload data. Right? That's all we need to do. Okay. And maybe in the view did load, we should do the reload data as well. All right, fetching emissions and then we're reloading data. Cool. We're actually, we can put this guy. We can put this guy in here. As soon as we get the data, we're going to reload it. So it's all just one step. We don't need to include that anymore. Yeah, that makes our code a little bit cleaner. All right, so that's what we do. We fetch all emissions once it's done, and we should be able to see the thing that we just added show up in our table. Right? So we're going to go add some stuff. Let's say, boom, see? There we go. See, now if we stop it and we run it again, we will see that the data persists. Before, it would just refresh and be gone. Right? So now it's still there. And we see that, hey, we got all the emissions from core data. Right? So this is the bucket list using core data. Now, editing it would be very similar. Deleting it would be, you would have to delete the stuff from core data, right? But I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, I'm just gonna leave the demo